The warmer weather is finally on its way, and at the end of April, for most parts of the UK, it will be safe to plant your dahlia tubers directly out in the soil. Now, there is a frost map because it does vary on where you are in the UK as to when your last frost date is, and I'm going to put that in the caption below so you can double check. Dahlia tubers are tender perennials, so if they get frosted, they will unfortunately rot and therefore not produce any flowers, which is not ideal. So best to check your last frost date before you plant them out in the garden. Now, if you're planting dahlias for the first time, raised beds is an absolute game changer because you can guarantee the quality of the soil, and because they're slightly raised above the ground, there's nothing overhanging them which could cause pests to climb in and decimate them one rainy evening, and it's much easier to keep an eye on them to make sure they're progressing. Now, if you don't have a raised bed, you can put them directly out into the garden as well. Just be really careful about slugs and snails because they are the biggest threat to young dahlia sprouts. It's literally their #1 food. So please make sure you keep an eye out for them, and I'll do another video on how to protect your beloved dahlias from the pesky slugs and snails. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. Building your own raised bed from scratch literally couldn't be easier, and I use mine for my tulips in the spring, for my dahlias in the autumn, and they are just literally like a blank canvas for me to plant and create beautiful combinations every single year. So I cannot recommend them highly enough, and they create a really nice feature in the garden as well. So with these raised beds, I've used 6-foot long scaffold boards, and I cut them in half to create the 3-foot long length either side, and I've screwed them into place using 5cm square pegs which I've hammered into the ground, and obviously screwed them in with galvanised screws. Once you've created your raised beds, I'd highly recommend filling it with good quality compost. Putting rubbish in is literally like giving your kids McDonald's every single day for breakfast, lunch and dinner and expecting them to thrive. It's not going to work. So really good quality compost, and I also mulch them every year in the autumn or in the spring with some well rotted horse manure, and I buy that from my local supplier, but any kind of rotted horse manure is really good because it's really high in nutrients and the dahlias love it. So when it comes to planting your tubers, they go this way up. This is last year's stem, and this is where the crown is at the bottom of the stem, where the eyes will form, and that will be where your sprouts will shoot from. You plant it that way, roughly 10 to 15 centimeters deep, and I space mine, some people won't like this, but I space mine 30 centimeters apart. And the reason for doing that is because I really like a thick, dense display. I don't like seeing any soil in between. And if you plant them closer together, it gives them a little bit of competition against each other to grow up and tall, rather than out and too bushy. So I do 30 centimeters apart, depending again on the amount of space that you've got. They will actually grow to 50 centimeters wide given the chance. So if you don't have a huge amount of dahlia tubers and you've got a really large space to fill, you can space them out a bit further apart. But for the purpose of growing them in these beds, I pack them in because I really want it to be a very full display. And obviously I've got lots of dahlia tubers, so that does help too. So one thing that is worth pointing out here, you can obviously plant them out once the threat of frost has passed, absolutely fine, but they will sprout depending on the temperature, and that we have no control over. The warmer it is, the hotter it is, the more sunshine there is, the more likely they are to sprout quicker. We would expect to see shoots and sprouts within like 4 to 6 weeks, but sometimes it might be longer. If the weather stays pretty chilly, they really don't like that, so they won't grow as quick, and we are dependent on the weather. Everyone that gardens knows that. So try and be patient and don't overwater them. They really don't like being overwatered. In fact, I wouldn't even bother watering at this time of year because you can rely on the rain and the water that's already, residual water that's in the soil already. They don't need a huge amount of water. So just be patient, be kind, keep looking out for them, and when they do start to sprout, make sure you've got a plan for controlling the slugs. Hope that helps, and then in August you can look forward to picking flowers right the way through until the first frost, which for us is usually around the end of October, beginning of November time. But the more you pick, the more they grow back. So lots of things to get you thinking about your cutting garden for this summer. And if you've got any questions, you can pop them in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any more of our fabulous top tips. Bye.